One of the most important mantras at Fox Marin is thinking long term. And it's really how we view everything from client relationships to investing in real estate across the board. It really is our mantra. And so I'd really appreciate having again as a repeat guest on this academy, First Time Buyers Academy, is Jerome to join us on this really important topic, thinking long term and how to view your first real estate purchase from a long-term standpoint, both from a lifestyle and an investment, because when it comes to residential real estate, the two very much co-mingle. Jerome, great to have you here for this conversation.
Great to be here, Ralph. Thank you.
So, when working with first-time buyers, how do you help them approach this from the standpoint of long-term thinking?
When I first get a call from first time buyers, this is how it typically goes. We saw this property. We really want to go see it. We might want to buy it. And my first comment to everybody is to make sure they know how big of a decision this is and to slow down the process. A lot of people have rented before and, it's annoying to move, but you put up a deposit, you get the keys, you furnish the place, you keep it clean, you hand the keys back, you move on by giving 60 days notice. When you buy a house, it's very different. You're paying a ton of money up front, your down payment, your land transfer tax, and then you're moving in. And all of a sudden, the problems that come up with your house are your own problems. You got to fix the roof, you got to replace the furnace, you got to shovel the driveway. And those responsibilities, for a lot of people, they don't necessarily think about until they're actually own the house. And the next thing to think about around this is when you're buying a home, you're generally getting a mortgage and you have this monthly payment that is happening every single month. Usually you're renewing every 4 or 5 years, getting a new interest rate. And if you ever want to leave the house, you ever want to sell and move out, it's a very big deal to do that. I don't think a lot of people appreciate how illiquid a real estate asset is. It's not like you can log in to your brokerage account and double click to sell out of one of your positions in Nvidia. It takes a long time. Your months of preparation, you're spending a lot of money, you're stressing, and you're trying to figure out how to get rid of a house and move into a new house in a way that you've never really had to in your real estate history before.
Awesome. So, one of the things that you said that resonated with me was slow down the process. I think it's one of the things that suddenly somebody gets a burst of motivation. And oftentimes, with first time buyers or just buyers in real estate, because it's such a personal and emotional acquisition, it is something that can be motivated sometimes by not the right motivation. We'll see sometimes couples that have a failing relationship will think it's a solution to the relationship. Sometimes people think it will fill a void in their lives or change their lives in a way that no property could ever really do that. So I think it's really important from the outset to really understand your why. And when you have clarity on that why, then you can start to think of it from a long-term standpoint as to how it could be a vehicle, either financial, lifestyle, goals wise, to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And it's really important to slow down and really, really think that through in a way that I don't think many people are prepared to when they're like, okay, well, let's go out there and look at buying our first property. One of the things, Jerome, that I see a lot as well with first time buyers in this environment is a lot of times people are very much drawn to just trying to find the cheapest property. And it's one of the things that we really try and instill with our clients is it's really important to be focusing on value, because when you're focusing on value, you're focusing on the opportunity, both short and long term. How does that play into your calculations when you're working with first time buyers?
Yeah, one of the first lessons I think most first time buyers I work with get is that there's no such thing as an amazing deal in quotes. You just simply have good value and not good value. There's good real estate and there's bad real estate. And if you want, you can go out and set your realtor.ca search setup to the least expensive properties possible. You go tour them, you walk through and you say, oh, there's a reason for this. Like this house is falling apart. It's going to take $400,000 just to get this in a condition where somebody can live here without catching some sort of virus or disease. And When you have properties like that, and that's what you're focused on, a lot of people are not thinking in 5 or 10 years what they're gonna be doing when they try and sell it. So if it's a really good deal now, if it's really inexpensive now, it's gonna be really inexpensive relative to the rest of the market when they go to sell. And quite often, people aren't really considering that, the buyer pool, if you will, for that property. If a property sits for 6 months in the Toronto real estate market, especially in Toronto proper, there's probably a good reason for it because good properties, no matter the market conditions over the last 25 years, will sell within a week or 2 weeks if it's priced appropriately. So deal hunting is really not a good strategy. And I think a lot of people, I'll put in this category also homes that are flips or cheap renovations. I'd much rather a client buy a property that is a little rough around the edges from an aesthetic perspective, but has a ton of upside to it versus a narrow property with no parking on a busy street that has a brand new but cheap renovation going in. You can change the flooring in a house. You can change the kitchen. You can't change its location. You can't change how wide it is. And so if you stick to good fundamentals when you buy real estate, you are going to end up in a good position where you have the flexibility to update the home yourself to improve it. Or if you need to move up the property ladder, there's always going to be demand for good value real estate when you go to sell.
And flipping it back to condos for a second, because that's where a lot of first time buyers end up, is the same thing goes for condos. And, we've talked about maintenance fees on a couple of these past episodes. But if you're looking at a condo and you're like, oh my God, look at this, this is 1,000 square feet and it's $480,000, but the maintenance fees are $1,500 a month, you're going to run into a problem 5 years from now. So don't get caught into low price points in condos where you have excessive maintenance fees and or potential special assessments, which happen more frequently in older properties, as well as we see a lot of people getting caught in these traps. Well, if I can buy in this really inexpensive Airbnb condo and I can get some extra side income, then this looks like a really good deal. The problem is in 5 years from now, you probably will not be able to sell it. Or if you do, it might not be for very much more than you paid for it at the time of purchase. So buyer beware. It's really important if you're looking at properties to understand what it is you're buying and what the value, the actual value of that property, not just to the market, but to you yourself. One of the things you touched upon, Jerome, that I thought was a really great point, and it's something that I often think about as well, is as a buyer or a first time buyer, how can you add value to the property? Do you want to talk a little bit about the importance of that and where the opportunities are as a first time buyer?
For sure. I guess we'll move into the renovation category around this because that's
Mhm.
where a lot of it is. Again, you can't really change the fundamentals of a property, but there are things you can do on the property itself that are going to improve both the enjoyment, your lifestyle, and the value of it if you do go to sell it down the road. I like to bucket those renovations into sort of three categories. The first one being your necessary renovations. And that's typically stuff you have to do before you move in or as soon as you get the keys to the property, just to bring it up to sort of a habitable or comfortable living standard. So, quite often, for clients buying a house that's had some water issues in the basement, we know that we've budgeted for it and they go in there and they get waterproofing done on the exterior and they spend the proper $25,000 to do it and they get a sump pump in. That problem's solved. Now they can use their basement, they can have their kids down there and not worry about the issue. There'll be things like replacing a furnace as soon as they move in because it's a 30-year-old furnace. And the last thing you ever want is for it to go out on February 27th and the pipes to freeze in your house and burst. And then you have a $50,000 insurance claim. So there's these fundamental things that are necessary renovations that are just kind of baseline you have to do. The next step up from that are aesthetic renovations. And I like to think of these of things that aren't going to cost a ton of money, but they're going to make the house feel exactly like you want it to feel. So things can be as cheap as painting, which you can do over the weekend yourself, putting the right accent wall up there, the perfect cloud white on your walls and wainscoting. You can do flooring, tearing up the flooring or even laying new flooring on top of the old flooring, light fixtures, doing a deck, appliances, renovating the kitchen without really moving plumbing or electrical, renovating the bathroom and just doing new tiles or new vanity can really change the look of a property. And quite often you'll see houses before they are listed, an owner will actually do some of those small aesthetic changes after having 25 years of wear and tear to make it feel like a nice, warm, inviting, newer home to prospective buyers. So the aesthetic renovation is in that line.
And
Go
I'm
ahead,
just
Rob.
going to interject just for a second. It's one of the things that drives me crazy when you have somebody that's lived in a house for 10 years and they always thought and talked about doing the renovations. But then prior to going to market, they have to do all of the renovations in order to sell the property and maximize its potential. And one of the things I'm always really, really talking about with clients when they buy a property is to do the renovations now or to figure out a plan, even if they financially they can't, a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plan so that they stick to it, so that they actually get the benefit of enjoying all of these great upgrades that you're making to a house rather than doing it right at the end of your term and then passing it over to somebody else.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always say to people, imagine you're renting your house out on Airbnb for a weekend.
Mhm.
Like, what would you want to do if you were the person on the other end of that to be moving in and feel comfortable and excited by that house? A lot of those Airbnb updates are pretty inexpensive to do, and you may as well do them up front. The last renovation category or sort of big thing you can do to add value to the home are I just call them big renovations. You're fundamentally changing the functionality of the property itself.
Uh-huh.
And that's things like creating an open concept floor plan on the main floor, taking out load bearing walls and putting beams in to give you lots of natural light inside a home that was a little dark and compartmentalized before. There'll be things like adding an addition where you're taking off the roof of the home, adding a half story, half third story, or full third story. Maybe it's bumping out the back and giving you the kitchen with two sides of windows and natural light that you've always wanted to. Quite often, and this is for a lot of old homes in Toronto, underpinning the basement and waterproofing that thing can quite often give you 30% more livable space in your home. None of these things are inexpensive to do. They all require permits. They require tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, but they can actually change your home from being a 3-bed, 2-bath with 1,500 square feet of livable space to a 4-bed premium property that's got a dugout basement with a family room and a guest bedroom. It moves it to another category, and you don't have to pay any land transfer taxes to do those renovations instead of moving. And so if you kind of wrap all of that together, my favorite types of properties to help clients purchase are the ones where they're stretching to get the home they want, but it's not that they're stretching to pay for someone else's renovation. They're stretching to get a home that has that extra foot of width or it has that parking space off the laneway where when they can save up and do it, they'll have the ability to transform their home into kind of their forever home as opposed to having to move after 5 or 10 years into the home that they actually want. So to me, that's kind of like the perfect sweet spot when you're talking about freehold properties for a lot of first time buyers to set as a benchmark.
For sure. And it's also going back to long term thinking. If you can come up with a 3 to 5 year plan on your property, and it's like, okay, well, we stretched ourselves, we have to absorb this big financial shock of a first purchase and making these payments every month. But we know over the years our earning power is going to go up, and we can come up with a plan, maybe even on a refinance to do some of the bigger projects. One of the things I always look for is precedent with neighboring houses. So if you have a 2.5 story and everything around you is a 3 story, or you have a smaller actually house, but all around you, everyone has managed to bump it out. Those are pretty good telltale signs from the outset before doing your due diligence that you may have those type of opportunities to add value. And, with the changes in a lot of the city rules, there's potential opportunities for laneway housing and to add more rental units to help support income or bring those in-laws in at some point in time. So lots of ways that you can add value to a property. And when you're looking at a property, you should always be thinking that. Now, that is more specifically for low rise, but you will see some types of opportunities on a much smaller scale to add value to condo properties, especially older ones where you can put in a kitchen island or you can put down new flooring. One of the things for older condos is the dreaded popcorn ceiling. Nothing makes a condo feel younger than getting rid of that popcorn ceiling and putting in some pot lights. So there's things that you can do for properties across the board. It really just depends on looking for the right opportunities, thinking long term, and thinking about value rather than the cheapest price. And going into the last point here, Jerome, talk about the property ladder, and when you're thinking long term and strategically, how your first purchase can set you up for your second.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about buying your first home, one of the biggest questions to think about is, could I live in this home forever? Or could I change this home to be my forever home? If the answer is no, that's completely fine. And if that's an affordability issue, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do. However, you want to kind of roadmap out over the next 10, 15, 20 years, both from a financial perspective, what your monthly cash flow is going to look like, what your savings are going to look like, and figure out what the next move might be. If this is a 5-year home or a 10-year home, and 5 years is kind of the minimum that we would ever advise somebody think about holding residential property themselves, then you got to plan out, what's it going to cost me to sell down the road? What's likely the appreciation going to be? Give me a range. And what am I going to be able to buy down the road if I buy this house today? And if you can roadmap that out and work backwards, I know it sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of money and there's a lot of effort going into this. That's really where you can put a roadmap together to kind of start at the end, maybe not at the retirement home, but one step back from that before you're downsizing in the retirement home, and work the plan backwards of where you think you're going to want to be. And going through that exercise is going to really help you focus on the first home you're purchasing and figuring out what's most important to you. If you're planning for kids, what school district they're going to be in, are they okay moving schools once they're 3, 4, 5 years old? All of those things working backwards. If you're thinking about them from the onset, it's going to set you up for that second purchase a lot better than if you just look in a 2, 3 year time horizon of what you need now, and you'll be in good shape by the end.
For sure. And if you're thinking about not having kids, or you want to be right downtown and you see opportunities in the current market environment, then you can project out, where you see things being in 3 to 5 years' time. And so thinking long term, climbing that property ladder and setting yourself up for success is the most important step that you can make as a first time buyer, because we've inherited clients from other agents who have bought that first property and they've lived to regret it, both financially and from a lifestyle standpoint. And you really don't want to put yourself in that position, because that can financially, morally, and spiritually put you back a lot more than 3 to 5 years. So really, really embrace educating yourself and making sure that you're doing what you're doing for the right reasons, and that you understand the big picture and your goals. And if you do that properly, and if it's well executed and you have a little bit of luck, you could end up setting yourself up for a tremendous amount of success on this first purchase. There you go. Jerome, so great to have you here. Appreciate your thoughts and comments on this great topic. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you.